I'm Mark Dawson from the Self-Publishing Show, and this is Self-Publishing Spotlight, where we shine a light on the indie authors who are changing the world of publishing, one book at a time.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Spotlight. We meet indie authors at all stages of their careers and ask them a series of 5 questions. 5 questions about their process, their mistakes and their successes. 5 answers that will help you level up your own author career. My name's Tom Ashford and I'm part of the Self-Publishing Formula. Don't forget that you can get your self-publishing resource kit at selfpublishingformula.com/starter kit. This week's guest is MJ McGriff. She's written 2 books in the science fiction genre and she lives in Florida. Welcome, MJ.
Welcome. Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
It's great to have you on. So would you like to start by talking about the books that you've written?
Okay, well, I have released 2 novels in the sci-fi genre. They're part of my New Earth series. And basically the premise behind that is New Earth, which basically, or Old Earth is gone, kind of fuels my obsession with dystopian stories. But basically it's stories about a group of heroines who basically have to save this new one. And they come from all kinds of backgrounds. So you have a Federation soldier, you have someone who's been deemed a traitor, you have someone that's been deemed an enemy from an opposing side. So it's a really fun series and I had a good time writing it. So that's what that one's about.
Sounds great. So let's jump in with the questions. Question 1 is, why do you write? So was there a particular reason that you started writing in the first place?
When I was a kid in elementary school, I loved to read. And then once I finished a story, it was kind of like I didn't want it to end. So I kind of wanted to write my own version. And I really have to give credit to my elementary school teachers. They were really instrumental in fueling that love of writing. In the 3rd grade, our teacher had us write our own stories and illustrate them. And then she went and had them bound and put in the school library, so all the other kids in the school can read them. Wow. So that was pretty cool. I had another teacher of mine when I didn't get a part in a play, and she was like, well, write your own script and write your own part. I was like, okay, that works. So I really thank them for kind of fueling that writing passion I already had and kind of giving me the confidence to pursue that. So ever since then, elementary school and middle school, I would write stories for my friends and kind of pass them out. So I guess you can consider that an early form of indie publishing, so to speak. Yeah. And that was really fun and really cool. So it's just something that I've always done and couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
Yeah. And so was there a particular reason that you chose science fiction?
I loved it. As a kid, I always watched like Star Trek. I used to sit with my parents and both are really big nerds, so that kind of helps. We always watch Star Trek and Star Wars, and I just love just the fantastical elements of it. Fantasy is another love of mine too. Imagination's the limit. You can really just come up with kind of anything, and I think that's just the fun in storytelling for me.
Yeah. Cool. And so are you self-published or traditionally published or hybrid or?
I'm self-published at the moment.
Yeah. Would you ever look to get a traditional contract, or are you more focused on just taking the indie route?
If the contract was right, I'm definitely open to it. I'm all about having those kind of, from a business perspective, having those different kinds of multiple streams of income. So, if a traditional publisher comes to me and the contract makes sense, I definitely consider it.
Cool. So question 2 is, how do you write? So are you more of a plotter or do you just see where the story takes you?
I am such a hardcore plotter. I mean, my type A brain can't function unless it has a plan. So I spend at least a good month with my outlining and world building and developing characters. I get with my editor just to make sure my outlines are solid before I even start drafting. So I'm very hardcore plotter. And now that my time is very limited, I work full time. I have my creative writing business and I'm a single mom. So I only have little pockets of time here and there. So once it's writing time, I have to know what I'm writing and then I kind of just take off from there. So
yeah. Do your so what sort of word count are your books?
The first 2 books that I published, they're around 80K.
Okay.
The fantasy story that I'm working on now, it started at 100K, then it kind of went down to 60, and now it's kind of climbing back up to around the 80, 90 range. So that's what I try to stick to with
Yeah.
that.
Cool. And so what sort of software do you use? You sort of Scrivener, Word, Google Docs, that sort of thing?
I love Scrivener. It's great to kind of house like all of my projects and my notes and my world building pictures and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I also use Google Drive because if I'm on the road or I don't have, my laptop accessible, I can kind of type on my phone or type on somebody else's desktop and save it on the cloud. And then when I get home, I can kind of pull it into Scrivener. So
Yeah.
I use both of those.
Nice. And is there a particular time and place? I know you mentioned getting like pockets of time and things like that.
Yeah, well, when I'm on my lunch breaks at work,
Yeah.
I write. And then when I get home and after my girls are in bed, I kind of have my little like writing desk off in the corner of my bedroom. And that's kind of where I sneak in some writing time.
Yeah. So question 3 is, and you've sort of touched on this a little bit, but it's, are you a full-time author? If you are, how did you get there? And if you aren't, what steps are you taking to make it happen?
Okay, well, I'm not full time yet, but what I am doing is this past year, I've been working with a branding and business coach for authors and trying to really get my creative business set up. So that way, when the income starts coming in from my books, I'm good to go as far as the financials and making sure my brand is on point and building my community and knowing who I'm writing to. So that way, the marketing is effective and reaches who I want it to reach. So I'm kind of taking all of those steps and easing my way into the full-time author. And then on the creative end, it's just cranking out books.
Yeah.
I try to crank out at least, 2 full-length novels and a short story a year. So I try to keep to that production schedule so that way I can transition on into full-time.
Yeah. And are you working on a series, did you say, or is it more standalone?
I'm working on a series. So right now I'm working on a YA fantasy series. So there are a lot of books and novels and short stories and freebies kind of all worked into that series. So it definitely helps with production to kind of stay in the same story world for a while.
Do you think you'll go with like perma-free or like 99p or cents for the first book, or try to keep them all sort of normal ebook full prices?
I tried with the sci-fi series, I tried the perma-free for a little bit, but I'm not sure because what I'm doing right now is I have short stories that I'm automatically giving away for free. If anything, I might have a novella that's in there, maybe 99 cents, and then keep the ebooks full price.
Yeah.
I think as long as I give a lot of that free content out in the front end to kind of lead people into the full-length books.
Yeah, cool. So question number 4 is, what mistakes do you think you've made and what have you got right?
Wow, I think the biggest mistake I made was not thinking about marketing. And it's so crazy to say because my day job is in marketing, but when you're creative, it's kind of hard to see yourself as a business. So with my first 3 books, I wrote them and sent them out and did a little bit and they went nowhere because I didn't have a plan. I didn't create a community. I wasn't clear on my brand. So I think that was the biggest mistake I think I've made as far as, my writing is concerned. So that's why now I basically took the year before I even published this YA fantasy novel to really get all of that together so I can launch this book properly. So I think that's the biggest mistake I've made. As far as what I've gotten right, I think really just not being afraid to learn and always learn. Like I said, my day job is in marketing, but I'm still learning because it's kind of hard to market something for yourself as opposed to somebody else. So not being afraid to learn, not being afraid to reach out to people and get help, have mentors, read books on craft, read books on business, just always staying in that constant flow of learning, I think has really, really helped me.
Yeah. Okay, and your 5th and final question is, what's your final piece of advice for authors starting out in indie publishing?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be starting out is to be ready to invest in yourself. I know at first money can always seem to be an issue, but I think there's only but so much you can do on your own and learn on your own. So when it comes to like Mark's courses. I signed up for his ad for authors courses, and that was, amazing to me. But just keep that in mind. I know my first year, I didn't have too much disposable income. So what I did was I saved for a year while I was writing, because I know editors are going to cost money and covers are going to cost money. So every month I put money aside. And in the meantime, I'm cranking out drafts. So that way when I had the time to hire an editor, the money was there and the draft was done. So I think that's the biggest thing for anybody who really wants to make this a business and who really wants to level up and go full time, is to just keep that in the back of your mind. There's going to be a point where you're going to have to invest, and just to be ready to.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, because it is possible to release an ebook essentially for free, but it can come back to bite you, or just, you won't make any sales at all, and you're just sort of dead in the water as such, and you have to start over. So you might as well invest at the beginning and make sure you hit the ground running.
Absolutely. And even if it takes time, it's better to have it take time and do it right than to rush it and do it wrong.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, those are 5 questions and very good answers. And thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Hopefully I'll see you next year at NINC.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be there.
That's it for this week's Self-Publishing Spotlight. Don't forget that you can get your free self-publishing resource kit at selfpublishingformula.com/starter kit. And if you want to appear as a guest on this show, send us brief details about yourself and your writing at selfpublishingformula.com/spotlight-guest. I'm Tom Ashford, and I'll see you again next week.